Tonight we're going to talk about loneliness and its effect on our lives, both being sick and well. The departure is this book called The Broken Heart, The Medical Consequences of Loneliness. And with me is Dr. James Lynch, who I guess you're an expert on loneliness. Which is a
well, or an expert on companionship,
yes.
Which is the converse.
The essential message of your book is what?
Well, it's two-part. The first part is that loneliness, isolation, which is growing in the society, is linked to premature death, and in this book specifically linked to cardiovascular disease, which is the nation's biggest killer. And more specifically, I'm trying to demonstrate, which is an overwhelming statistical fact, that states of isolation, such as divorce, being singled or widowed, greatly increase your risk of developing and dying from coronary heart disease prematurely. For example, with divorced men in the United States, their premature death rate from coronary heart disease is about double that of married men.
The thing that amazes me, and I'm hearing this message again and again, your book is another reaffirmation, but we've always known of TLC and the consequence of tender loving care. This is not new. This has been known for hundreds of years. Why has the medical profession seemingly forgotten that in its everyday practice with people?
Well, I think that's the, I think you put your finger on the crux of the problem, and I wouldn't just say the medical profession has forgotten that. I think society has forgotten that. Because I think we tend to view human companionship like we view our air. We simply take it for granted, and taking it for granted no longer notice it and allow it to become very polluted. Right. Historically, in the book I discuss this at great length. I think it's a, although I think this is a bit difficult to go into here, as medicine grew more scientific in the 20th century, the pill became far more important than the pill giver, partly because it was effective.
Right.
And so that those aspects of health and illness linked to physical causes were effectively treated.
You didn't need to have a good bedside manner with penicillin.
That's right.
It took care of the problem regardless.
Right. And we tended to generalize that over into all forms of illness, and unfortunately those forms of illness that grew out of loneliness, depression, despair, people also were given pills for that. And so rather than having lonely individuals seek out other people for company, the mentality grew in this country that they could be sent to drugstores for antidepressants. Right. So that it was a medicine that essentially evolved too far, I believe.
But I've talked to many doctors about this, and I say, you know, for God's sakes, for example, when you tell someone they have cancer, why can't you touch them or hold their hand or put your arm around them? And so many doctors say, I can't get involved. If I get involved with one patient or three, I will be helpless because I'll begin to identify, which seems like a reasonable response. Well, how do we solve those two diverse needs?
Well, I think, again, this is not just the doctor's problem. I think they only reflect what is an entire philosophy about health and illness in this country. I think first, and I'll have to come about in a roundabout way to answer your question, I think that we tend to view disease as out there, and we tend to view it as an alien force that gets us. It kind of interrupts our health. What we don't see is health and illness as interlocked, gradually evolving processes that occur over many years. Therefore, nothing we do matters. And of course, this reaches its high point in operations such as the heart transplant operation, where the illusion, not the reality, there's an illusion that nothing a human being matters, and the heart really is an automobile tire that you can replace every 40,000 miles. Right. And until we restore a balance, both within medicine, between art and science and medicine, and in the culture, between art and science and healing, it will be difficult for a doctor or another human being to put their arms around another.
Well, that's classically one thing missing then in American society, that we have lived for almost 200 years thinking that profit was the name of the game, making money, turning a volume. I think we're beginning to find out the appreciation of art, of music, of things that have no intrinsic value to many people are perhaps the most important to making it all work in a more healthful manner. Well, have you come up with any solutions in this book?
Well, I think the first solution and the most realistic one is to make people aware of the problem. Obviously, I don't have all of the answers to the multi-dimensions of human loneliness, but I think if we can make people aware not only of the pervasiveness of loneliness, which I think we live in a society that I think is aware people are lonely. What we haven't done is told people loud and clear that this is linked to their health, and that simply eating margarines is not going to prevent cardiovascular disease, that their social life is every bit as important as diet and exercising and physical factors. Until they become aware of that problem, I think the problem will continue to grow. So the first solution is to make people aware of the problem. The other solution I offer in that book is to trace out how we evolved to where we have evolved, so that many people in the society maintain a very peculiar idea, often covered or couched in the whole notion of independence in the society. We often tend to see men and women, at least on our media, I hate to talk about your media here, but
please do.
Who seem to equate independence with not needing anyone else, so that the independent person cannot depend on another human being for companionship and comfort, so that many people, to me, seem to be trying to effect what Adam in Paradise couldn't effect, that is, to get along without anybody else and not need anybody else.
Well, now that's been translated into the word freedom in our society.
Freedom is equated with independence, and dependency has become a dirty word. In fact, I think loneliness has become a dirty word in this culture.
Well, very provocative things to talk about, Dr. Lynch. Thank you. The name of the book, again, is The Broken Heart, The Medical Consequences of Loneliness. And we'll be right back.